Hey guys, let's look at an example of a counterclaim and refutation together. So this is a student example that was turned in. I have not given feedback to the student on this paragraph yet. Um, this is based off of your debate, off of the argument that Dick and Perry did or did not kill the Walker family in Florida. I like this one because overall it's a very strong paragraph. I also like that the student use highlighters to create a rainbow paragraph. I think for those of you who are visual learners, that this makes things very easy to understand. All right, so we're going to start right here with Hickok and Smith are responsible for the murders of the Walker family. Okay, this is actually part of the introductory paragraph. So let's all pretend that this student has written an introductory paragraph. Okay, so there's a lead, there's a bridge, and now that really does say bridge. And this right here is the thesis statement. Okay, this is our argument. This is what we're going to try to prove. All right, so when we get into the counterclaim has 3 steps. Step 1 is to use a qualifying logic word, okay, something that shows the opposite, although. Step 2 is to use a sentence starter. Some will say, and then finish that sentence, right? I gave you the sentence starter. Now you finish it. Hickok and Smith didn't kill the Walker family. Right here. Step 3, explain why. After all, the DNA results came back inconclusive, so there is no way to say for sure they committed the murders. Two things are happening here that I want to look at. First, the DNA. What DNA? What DNA are we talking about? Well, it's probably the DNA of the Walker family, but remember that that's in the thesis, which is a different paragraph. So if it doesn't have anything to relate back to within the paragraph we're in, make sure that you're very clear about everything you're talking about. The other thing is we need a comma right here, okay? Because we have, after all, the DNA results. The DNA results is the subject that we're talking about. Came back is the verb, and to say the DNA results came back inconclusive makes a complete thought. Then we have, there's no way to say for sure they committed the murders. So there's no way to say for sure is the subject. That's what we're talking about. Committed, or I guess they is the subject. That's what we're talking about. Committed is the verb. They committed the murders makes a complete thought. So there's no way to say for sure they committed the murders is a complete thought. So because we're using a fanboy here with 2 independent clauses, we need a comma. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the refutation. The refutation, right, to refute means to argue, to show why something's wrong. So what's not highlighted here? So let's get rid of some of this, just to be clear. All right, so everything that's typed in white, that's your counterclaim. So the refutation now is going to show why that little blurb is wrong. And that's where this rainbow paragraph comes in. All right, so the pink or the red, right? A rainbow's red. If you have highlighters, it's pink. Right here. On the other hand, okay, starts with step 1. On the other hand, it's another qualifier. It's a word that shows the opposite. It is more likely that is the sentence starter. You have to finish the sentence. Hickok and Smith did in fact kill the Walker family. Okay, so that's step 3 is to explain what your point is. So I'm going to go ahead right here and underline Hickok and Smith did in fact kill the Walker family. This should say the same thing as your thesis. It doesn't have to be word for word, but it has to be the same argument. All right, so orange is supporting details. Supporting details have to illustrate or exemplify your topic sentence, which I underlined. So, proving that Hickok and Smith did in fact kill the Walker family. The example says Hickok and Smith stole a Chevrolet Bel Air and went to Florida in December. The Walker family was in the market to buy a Chevy Bel Air, so when Hickok and Smith arrived at their house in the car, Christine Walker may have invited them inside, thinking they would sell it to her. Okay, so that's a perfect example of how Hickok and Smith came in contact with Christine Walker, how she would have, or how they would have gotten inside of her house, and this example supports that they could have in fact killed her. All right, then yellow is where you introduce the quote. When you introduce the quote, you need to say who was the speaker, whom they were speaking to, and in what context. That's important. Let me say that again. Who is the speaker? To whom were they speaking to? And in what context? Okay, so here we are in yellow. We have, well, Hickok and Smith, we're talking about Florida. Okay, so that's the context. That's what's happening. Capote stated. That's the whom. That's whom this information was given to. But who said it? Okay. Let's see. I guess really Capote said it. Now this says Capote stated while they were talking in Florida. He didn't state this while they were talking. He stated this about this. So we could say, how could we say this? Wait. Well, Hickok and Smith were talking about Florida. Here, Judas Gumage. Oh, okay. So actually, right here in green here, Dick's about to be the speaker. So we could say, well, Hickok and Smith were talking in Florida. Maybe we want to change that to, I don't know. Hickok and Smith were talking about Florida. Capote stated, or Capote reported their conversation to go. Maybe that would be the best way to say it. Okay, Capote reported their conversation to go. So that way we have Capote is the writer. If he's reporting a conversation, it's to you, the reader. Okay, so maybe something along those lines. All right, then we have the quote. So the quote starts with a quotation mark. It says, but Perry chewed his gum and shivered and sulked. Dick said, what is it, honey? The other deal. Why the hell can't you forget it? They never made any connection. They never will. Up here, I missed it. Okay, so notice that when Dick started talking, there's one quotation mark. Two quotation marks starts our quotation. One quotation mark here, one quotation mark here, because you put one quotation mark inside double quotation marks. Now we don't need a period here. This is the end of Capote's sentence, but it's not the end of our sentence. Our sentence ends out here. All right. I also want you to notice right here the page number, the citation. It is simply a parenthesis, the number, and a parenthesis. It doesn't say PG. It doesn't spell out the word page. It doesn't have a number sign. It's just simply the number. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to delete some of this because I'm going to write again. Okay. Then finally we get to the blue. And the blue is the explanation of the quote. Okay. The blue should prove or support how or why the green supports the red. Let me say that again. The blue should prove or support how or why the green supports the red. Okay, so the red, again, is our topic sentence. Hickok and Smith did, in fact, kill the Walker family. Our quotation says, but Perry chewed his gum and shivered and sulked. Dick said, what is it, honey? The other deal? Right here, the other deal? Why the hell can't you forget it? They never made any connection. They never will. How does that prove or support that Hickok and Smith did in fact kill the Walker family? It says, while talking about Florida, look, while's an Awubis word, while talking about Florida, comma, Smith's whole mood and attitude changed. Hickok then talked about the other deal, which leads the reader to believe they killed someone else during their time in Florida, and the police never connected it back to them. Okay, need a comma there, right? The police never connected it back to them. The timeline matches for when Hickok and Smith were in Florida and when the Walker family was killed. In fact, on the morning of the Walker family murders, the two checked out of a Miami Beach motel and later that day went shopping at a store in Sarasota, which was only a few miles away from the crime scene. This gives the duo a connection to the murders and can provide a solid timeline. I think that's fantastic. Now, when we get back from spring break, we're going to start talking about our final project, which is to create a magazine. So this student might consider using this as an article in his or her magazine. And if that's the case, then I would suggest right here where it says, in fact, you could actually use this entire section to write a second counterclaim and refutation, which is what you're going to need to do. But we'll worry about that after spring break. So I hope that the slow walkthrough of a complete paragraph was helpful to you guys before you take your quiz today and as you continue working.